Today I kitbashed this Raven boy into a follower of the Dark Gods. And while I show you the spruce, I'd like to tell you that when I started this project, I didn't know that I started building the first piece of a small diorama. A diorama you as well can shape into existence. Later in this video I tell you how. But first, I built this one following its instructions until this point. And as always, get rid of these pesky loyalist symbols and sprue residues. When that was done, I sanded the areas flat using a very fine sanding paper, as I do not really mind small scratches. It somehow adds to the realism in my opinion. But anyway, this miniature has some mini raven skulls. I tried to cut these away as soon as I saw them, but they are quite hidden and sometimes I missed one. And after that I glued the miniature together. And now the fun starts. As rightfully assumed by the pink thumbnail and title, I am building an Emperor's Children today. Luckily the kit provided me with these very Emperor Children-like wings for their pauldrons, like Fulgrim's armor has as well. Unluckily, the designers hid it in the form of some mech ravens and had to be cut apart using a clipper and a knife. I think the small detail Emperor Childrenifies the miniatures instantly, but I also think that the children do not have to be that brutally trimmed like other Chaos Space Marine factions. By the way, if you give this miniature a hammer of your choice and use the original head, paint the hair white, one could also imagine him to be a nice Eidolon proxy. Here's your free idea. I rolled up some green stuff and gently pressed it into the area under his pauldron. I used a sort of a flawless blade here to press it in, did the 180 and put the arm into the spot where it looked like an arm is missing. This part of the miniature hides the arm so incredibly well that one can do basically anything with that. The only thing left to do here when it's dry is to slightly bend the rope, or however you are calling this scarf, hanging from his shoulder. But anyway, I messed up one of these raven skulls on the very obvious place and tried to cover that up with a little bit of green stuff, my sculpting tool and the backside of my knife to indicate a feather-like appearance. And if you're also considering kitbashing this one and not using the lightning claws, I strongly recommend cutting the arm joint of this left arm away before gluing his fancy feathers on. As his right arm was already finished and I wanted to match his aesthetic, I took another unused arm of a flawless blade and sawn it in half right above the arm joint. I also cut away the sword and used an old Demonette standard or banner here, as I wanted him to hold a Slaaneshi icon that he could place on a very high place. I tried to pin this one off camera, but it was too fiddly and small for my skills, so I bluntly used Citadel's glue to hold this one. It's pretty lightweight anyway, so it's not a problem. Before I placed this arm, I needed to know where I want this miniature to be looking at. And again, I used the Flawless Blade's head here, gave him the Eidolon treatment as well, to only have a lone head without neck, and green stuffed it onto the head missing place of the miniature. And after that was done, I again green stuffed the banner holding forearm onto the rest of the upper arm, so he has a whole arm. I carefully adjust the position of it and went on with some more bits. Giving him a small knife and yes, this thing. It's a bit from a Contemptor Dreadnought. I guess it belongs to the Underhand Flamer. One should guess I know such things as I built and own 3 of these, but well. I used this bit to represent the Emperor's Children like chemical substance holding containers and tubes. So I placed this thing right between these 2 air intakes. And when it's set in place, I Slaaneshified it with my Slaaneshi symbol for a Slaaneshi Demon Prince. And after that I had to wait for everything to dry. By the way, are you waiting from pinky to index or the other way around? So this here is the goal with these tubes, and I think it's not that hard to pull off. As cables would be the obvious choice here, but I didn't found any at home and I didn't want to scavenge something electronical just for that. So I tried some leftover guitar strings, but these bended kind of awkwardly and also felt more like wires. Which they are. But then I found it. A leftover from 3D printing. It's flexible, it's sturdy, it's shapeable, representing this tube coming from this container here, through the feathering going straight into the armor. I just bent it into the shape with a clipper and placed it onto the armor, matching the flawless blade's position. And that was the moment I nearly went insane. When I tried to shape something like an input jack for the end of the tube that's going into the armor. I used a tiny amount of green stuff, formed it around my sculpting tool until it matched the size of the tube and gently placed it onto the end of it. And after that very fiddly work, I took half a day off, came back later when I realized that I really did not like the banner. The fabrics that made this one look cool faced in the wrong direction, so I replaced it with another Demonets banner and some cords of a Custodes one. And I also used one of these to cover up the tube that went into the arm. This looks more like it, but something is still missing. And this, to be honest, was the turning point of the project. So I first covered the base with some bigger and smaller glass rocks, and after that I had the idea of giving this miniature another banner. On top of this, ruined something. But first we need a banner pole. And as this Custodes one here is now totally unusable anyway, I used this one and cut it out of frame because I don't want the Custodes players to have evidence that I did that. And after that I removed the hand with my knife and sanded it flat with some sanding paper, not really caring if it's a little rough here or not. I cut it in a way that I have two connection points. One for the banner pole and the other one for the banner itself, so it sticks to the ruin something as well. The lore reason is that he just placed this one here and is on his way to place another one. The lore reason number 2 is this is the Slaaneshi world and you find artwork and representation anywhere here. And the lore reason number 3 is the rule of cool. More is more. When that was done, I only shaped the green stuff a little to represent some stone and went on with some texture paint. I tried a mix of AK Interactive's Fireland and Dark Earth just to test it and see how it looks, and primed everything black for now. I summoned some Slaaneshi colors of dark purple, deep magenta and wolf grey. Smudged these colors onto the miniature and wet blended them into each other. The only thing to keep in mind at this stage is to have the more brighter colors facing more towards the top of the miniature. I do not really care for neatness with this style of painting as I'm going to darken it down anyway. But first I paint all the metallics using dark silver for the sword, armor joints and bits of the jump pack. And for the armor trim, banner and the Slaaneshi symbols, I used Pro Acryl's bronze. And after that I used Pro Acryl's jade that I watered down to a shade-like consistency and, well yeah, shaded the gold. Once that was dry, I darkened the entire miniature down with Vallejo's Game Wash Black, waited for everything to dry and came back to the most fun part for me. Layering and building up volume. Placing highlights using some magenta and wolf grey. As this one has a very dark, even black undertone now, it helps to create a very popping highlight. I mostly stipple these on as this just creates a nerve tickling effect for me. I guess that's a very Slaaneshi thing to say. And if you made it up until this point, I would like to encourage you to leave a like, a subscription or to try the new hype function if you already have it, as it helps to shout this content out to like-minded people. And I also like to leave a huge thank you for all the nice words and the support. So, thanks a lot. When that was done, I painted the leathers with burnt red and parasite brown, creating some folds and such. While I'm looking at him, I also could imagine him to be a nice Alpharius, removing the feathers, giving him some scales instead. Yeah, maybe this could work. And after that, it was time to brighten up the entire miniature, using dark sea blue and whites. Especially Vallejo's wolf grey and white for all the feathers. I wanted these feathers to have a bluish undertone, as this just works very well with a pink armor. I also carefully and even zealously maybe painted some stripes to represent some highlights on these feathers. I also like to give a huge shout out to my amazing patrons for their continued support, as I do not take this for granted. And I also painted the scarf in the same manner. Which bothers me a little, to be honest, as I wanted to have some Slaneshi symbols here on there, but it just looks too good when it's that clean. And after that I used my trusted recipe to paint his face. Bachman's Glow and Elfic Flesh, and went on with the chemical containing container and tubes, which got a coat of gory red and a little bit of white. As well as his eyes. I think it must be a good mix when your eyes start to glow like that. And after that I stippled on some rough edge highlightings onto the golden parts. I really just like this color combination. It always reminds me a little bit of Cthulhu somehow. This dark, messing-like metal. Anyway, for the last step I used some blood for the blood god and water to create a glaze-like consistency that's still a bit glossy. And after that I used some various greys, blues, browns and reds to paint the base. And came to the most time-consuming part of all. Yes, the banner. So it's time to gobble down an espresso and have this done, as we come to, I guess, my most favorite shot of the year. I hope you enjoy. So, what do you think? In my opinion, he already looks like a tiny mini diorama by himself, but I wanted him to stand on a larger one now. Maybe sitting on a hill of an overgrown ruin looking down to face an opponent. But I'm very much open for any ideas, so if you have some, just let me know. But I'm afraid that's it for today. Thank you for watching, and we are going to see each other in the next one.